Hello, everyone, and welcome to Book Study 9 of Unfolding Consciousness, exploring the living universe and the intelligent powers in nature and humans. That's you. You have latent abilities. You might be using them, and that might be why you're here. Welcome. We're going to be talking about that and so much more. This is Volume 1, a panoramic survey, science contrasted with the perennial philosophy. And this is On Consciousness and Man. Okay, written down by Dr. Eddie Villamoria. I find this text to be the most important, most valuable set of books. It's a 4-volume set. It's over 1,300 pages. And it is, everything is in here. Everything. If you're here because this channel was once called Living Theosophy, there is Theosophy in here. I mean, seriously, I'm going to tell you what's in the text, and then we're going to go through it together in these weekly videos that I try to put out. Interestingly, we were on hiatus for a year, last year, and then I started these book studies, and people are like, what is she doing? I'm going to tell you that this collection, written down by Eddie Villamoria, who has stitched them together, this collection of the archaic teachings, this ancient knowledge, is just so powerful and timely. You don't have to buy the book. You're here for these free book studies. We'll do it together. Okay, anyway, so we're going to be moving through what the this first volume, which is about 340 pages. And then I'm going to cover a couple things that we did last week in the Exordium, which means the beginning, those powerful quotes. We're going to go over those. And we're going to talk about what is in Volume 1 before we begin, because we haven't actually begun. There's a lot to cover. So here we go. The first volume here, in Volume 1, the question is, if science won't give us the answers, then what will? We will cover in this text the mystery teachings of all ages. They are not a mystery anymore. They're not. We'll also cover a general overview of mysticism and the mysteries, the mystery schools. What are those mysteries? I'm going to cover that. Theosophy, which is Theos meaning gods, Sophia meaning wisdom, the wisdom of the gods, divine knowledge. Okay, it's not a god, it's divine knowledge. Esotericism, occultism, occult science. What is occult science? It's all covered in here. Psychic powers, phenomena of psychic powers, metaphysics. You hear all this stuff. What is it? We're going to get into it. We have all things paranormal, which is extremely popular right now. Everybody wants to know about ghosts and hauntings and the afterlife. It's all covered in here, so stick around. Okay, the soul, what does it mean? Spirit, soul, and body. What modern science says about consciousness. And journeys out of the body. The near-death experience, which is the best thing to validate these ancient teachings. Everybody's coming out and sharing these now because, one, we have the modern technology to capture these stories and get them out all over the world, but people are not scared to share their stories anymore. Some people do give me crap when I talk about them. They're like, oh, well, what are you on? Near-death experiences are absolute validations of the ageless teachings. It's true. So we're going to talk about those. Out-of-body experiences, lucid dreaming, mediumship, remote viewing, and remote dowsing. So that is in Volume 1. There's a whole bunch. This is all just what's in Volume 1. So just the titles of what's in Volume 1. So this is going to be a different kind of study. I'm seeing what works best for us here. So I thought I'd cover some of the quotes we had in the Exordium last week and just try to, I said I would go ahead and translate these to the best of my understanding as a student of Theosophy and the ancient teachings for the last 15 years. Some of you may already know what they're saying, but I thought I'd add a translation as we go through them. Here we go. Dr. Eddie Villamoria, Eddie, says, one of his quotes is, "In seeking out truth, a man is faced with many stones too heavy for him to overturn. But he should never leave untouched any stone that lies within his capacity to overturn." Now, many of you may know what that means, but to me, that means that on our journey, as we begin to understand who we are, where we are, why we are, what we are, there are a lot of very difficult things that will take place. That's what life on earth is about. But as we move forward in trying to find the truth on our own little journeys, we must have, steadfast strength and dedication to do what is required to always do the right thing in the direction of truth, to find that for ourselves. So Yes, never leave untouched any stone that lies within his capacity to overturn. I have found that once you've discovered these teachings, you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility to apply them, apply the teachings, become them, and then work to share them with other human beings to help reduce the unnecessary suffering of all beings on our planet. That is our responsibility. You can't just come across them and not do anything with them. It's not about you just having them for you. They're for everybody because we are all one another. The next one is, this one is written by Paul Brunton. And he said, the truth needed for immediate and provisional use. So the truth needed for immediate and provisional use may be learned from books and teachers. But the truth of the ultimate revelation can be learned only from within and by oneself, by meditation. So what that means is, well, you can learn whatever you need to on videos and books. That doesn't do anything. That's the intellect. You need to go within. This is where the voice of the silence can speak to you. This is not a voice that you hear. It is not an audible voice, in my understanding. But when you quiet the mind from that rapid fire, constantly always going, thinking, talking, worrying, wondering, just go, go, go. Or I'm guilty of this. I have my headphones in a lot, listening to things. So my mind is always occupied. But when I'm out there walking along the sea or out in nature, and I take those headphones out and I'm quiet and I try to get to that space where there is no thought going through. It's not going to be something you can master and have forever. It's just little blips of time where you find that there is this peace. The peace that surpasses all understanding is out there if we keep going. Anyway, you can have these teachings, apply them, and spend time in quiet. Quiet as much as you can. You don't have to meditate for hours on end, but just try to have that quiet space in between the thoughts to stop the chattering of the skull. Because that's where the voice of the silence is. And that is your higher self. Okay, next one is Mabel Collins from Light on the Path. Her quote was, the soul of a man is immortal, and its future is the future of a thing whose growth and splendor has no limit. Now, a lot of the times, Light on the Path, or the voice of the silence, or even the secret doctrine, if you take out little chunks of that, will sound like a metaphysical poem that is like, oh, it's really beautiful. What the hell does that mean? Let me explain this to the best of my ability. The soul of a man is immortal. You, that is you, wearing this meat suit, this body, you're wearing this body. The you that is you is immortal. The thinker, the observer, the witness is immortal. That's you, okay? And your future, its future, they're saying, is the future of a thing whose growth and splendor has no limit. I don't think that needs much explanation. But it means that we are far, far more than the five physical senses and what we think we are in these bodies. We are here to learn. We're here many, many times. And this is an ever-expanding universe. And this is not the only planet or place or dimension or state that we exist in. Okay, there's no limit. Limitless. We say that flippantly, limitless. It is limitless. It is eternal, boundless. Okay. Manly P. Hall says, science can discover many things, but we will never be able to feel the emptiness and the life of an individual. Okay, I'll read that again. Science can discover many things, but will never be able to fill the emptiness in the life of an individual. Can never give him the knowledge of self, which is essential to peace and happiness. The knowledge of self, right? In knowledge of self alone, Manly writes, lies happiness. Man, know thyself. When we finally figure out who we are, not the earthly personality, okay, not Anne in this body at 56 years of age and what I do, what I like, what I think, not that self, the real self, the knower, the witness, the observer in this particular time. So he says, in knowledge of self alone lies happiness. Because we think that money and fame and, romantic love, health will make us happy. But don't we find that that's not the case? That we're always like, oh, this is it, but it's not. I want more. In knowledge of self alone lies happiness. Now, the next quote here, I fleshed out a little bit. This is Blavatsky's quote, again from the Exordium. Give up thy life if thou wouldst live. People are like, what does that mean? Well, I'm going to flesh it out tiny bit. Then we're going to get to book 1. This is in the book, but I've expanded on it. So from the Voice of the Silence, there's actually a book called The Voice of the Silence. It's actually on this channel. I read it for you here in 2016, something like that. So it's here if you want to hear it. It's free. Okay. Saith the great law, in order to become the knower of all self, of everything, thou hast first to be the knower, okay? Has first to be the knower. To reach the knowledge of that self, thou hast to give up self to non-self and being to non-being. Basically, this is a way of saying it is not the earthly personality. You must get in touch with that knower, that wisdom that is in the voice of the silence between the thoughts of this earthly personality, the knower of self, who you are. Who are you? Okay? And so that's what she's talking about. So give up your life if you would live. Get past the earthly personality. Many people are always in the I, me, my. I get a chance to work and make babies and buy a house and go golfing and go on trips or whatever. And that's my life. That's great. That's what many of us are here to do that. But if you want to really know who you are, you got to get past that. You can still function in your earthly personality as you will, but you need to know that that's the body that you wear. That's just who you are this time around. It's like your clothes. It's like a set of clothing. The wearer of that clothing is the self. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and go on now to talk about what is happening in Volume 1. I was going to read the proem. Now, the proem is a preamble, basically a preamble. And then we'll get into the chapters. So thank you for bearing with me through my scratchy throat and all that. The purpose and justification. Why did he write these books? Why did Eddie write these books? A quote from Albert Schweitzer says, 3 kinds of progress are significant for culture. Progress in knowledge and technology. Progress in the socialization of man, which means humans. Progress in spirituality. And the last is the most important. Okay, so we can be here doing business, building buildings, buying land, making money, all that kind of stuff. But what is the most important thing we're here to do? We are here to learn and to evolve. And through those things, we do learn and evolve. But the knowledge of who we are and the spirit and the higher self is the most important. So here is the proem. There is an ancient tale about a pretentious scholar who approached the Greek philosopher, mathematician, and astronomer. His name was Thales of Miletus. His era was 624 BC to 546 BC. Hoping to baffle him with all sorts of bewildering questions about God, the universe, and man. What is the easiest of things? Our scholar inquired. To give advice, came the reply from the Miletian sage. And hoping to wrong-foot the sage, he asked, and what is the most difficult of all things? He asked. To know thyself, came the unequivocal rejoinder. So, again, everything is pointing towards who you really are. And what's the purpose of this? All of these religions, all of this philosophy, all of this science. We've been trying to figure out what we are. Science by looking at the material world, right? We're going to get into that. Religion, all of the sages coming through. We make up these societies and we have the religious teachings, but we kind of spiral off into our own ignorance, superstition, fear, greed, and drama. And then philosophy, the questions, who are we? Why are we? Where are we? So let's go. In Volume 1, we're going to go through the meaning and significance of unity. I'm just going to read you the subjects we're going to be covering. This is like a little introduction. They're all introductions because it's a mammoth text. The reason and justification for the work. So if science won't eventually provide us with all the answers, then what will? That's a good question. What will? We're going to cover that. Major turnarounds in science. We're talking about science itself demolishes scientific materialism. What is the reason and justification for this work? If science won't provide us with all the answers, then what will? That is in Volume 1. What then is the particular purpose? Man, know thyself, but why? Why should we know ourselves? Can't we just walk around and sleepwalk like everybody else? Blind and just functioning in the physical, thinking that this is all there is? Literally, in this boundless universe that 60, 80, 90 years, a long stretch of existing, buying things, making babies, and having a job, is that really what all this is about? Okay. And then we go through the role of science today. Could we be possibly missing something in science? What's the underlying message? We have, again, this is the panoramic survey, science contrasted with the perennial philosophy on consciousness and man. So we go through the key questions addressed in volume 1. We go through volume 2. I'm just going to give you a hint at what volume 2 is about. Volume 2 is peering down the microscope, man's internal landscapes, looking at the human being. And then volume 3 goes gazing in the telescope, gazing through the telescope to the cosmos, looking out to man being the measure of all things. You have heard that we are the universe in miniature, the macrocosm and the microcosm. In detail, this is all explained. You don't need to go anywhere else. Seriously, this has all been collected and referenced for you. Where's my other little piece of paper? Okay. Who or what am I? The mind brain, the thought problem. Even Nobel scientists disagree. The paradigm of science, its ideology, assumptions, and beliefs. Limitations in the modern scientific picture. To explain about phenomena that science cannot explain satisfactorily. And then we have morphic resonance, which is what Rupert Sheldrake talks about. That is covered in here. Paranormal phenomena has its own chapter in here. Psychology and parapsychology, paranormal and psychic phenomena, all covered in here. Out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, mediumship, straining our eyes beyond, which would be considered uncomfortable science. Science is pretty much wants to stay where it is right now. We have scientism, he covers that. Looking beyond to the metaphysical, to what we're talking about in all of these ancient teachings, there's a little bit of a uncomfortableness to go ahead and accept this. So perhaps could science and spirituality come together, religion and science? We explain all of that. I say we, he does. I'm going to share it here with you. We have, moving forward, the idea of consciousness. What is consciousness? What is consciousness? Does consciousness continue after death? Where does consciousness come from? And that is all covered. A new continent of thought. We're going to higher consciousness, physical consciousness, lower consciousness. What is your higher self? That is all covered. Moving forward, also the mystery teachings of all ages. We talked about that at the beginning. We have been going for a few minutes. Wow. Okay. And all of the mystery schools, what are they and how do they operate? And do we need them today? You have access to them here. There's no more need for any mystery. There is no mystery. They're available right here and online and other sources as well. But this is a fantastic collection and a powerful text. I have to say it is probably the most important book I have ever even heard of in other lifetimes as well. I mean, if you go back 100 years, whatever, this is the book. This is a collection, I should say. This is the collection of all of these teachings together. Hermetic axiom, you've heard of that, as above, so below. That is explained. The Emerald Tablet is covered. Cosmic birth and human birth correspondence is all covered here. The mystery teachings about man, who or what am I? What am I? What is the purpose of the mystery schools anyway? And who went to them? And where are they now, today? It's all covered. And then we go through further to, let's see, we have Transcendentalism, New Thought, the New Thought movement, which led to the New Age movement, which led to where we are today. All the New Age gurus here on YouTube, self-proclaimed gurus, it's all the same thing. They're all parroting the same stuff. They're cherry-picking from these ancient teachings. New Thought movement, New Age movement, and now where we are today. But this is a scientific explanation, a synthesis, a kind of a textbook, a reference manual of everything. So going further, we have through science and the mystery teachings, and then the soul, what does it mean? Spirit, soul, and body, their role and function in man. And that wraps up 350 59 pages of book 1. And of course, we have volume 2, 3, and 4 is a kind of a reference manual for the 3 volumes. So there you have it. This is Unfolding Consciousness. We will begin. I always say in every one of these, we will begin, but there's been so many introductions, and there's been the quotes, the Exordium, you had the references and all that. So we're still going to get there. But I'm only going to do one a week because I want to be able to give you a chance to digest these teachings. I want you to be able to revisit these if you wish. Come back to this episode, and you can go through by looking at, you have the transcript down below, and then I'll be reading directly from it. So I'll do my translations, my understanding as a fellow student on the path with you, and then I will always give you Eddie's pure writings at the end. So thank you for being here. Unfolding Consciousness, Exploring the Living Universe and Intelligent Powers in Nature and Humans. And some people say, well, for all 4 books, it's expensive. And I understand what you're saying. I understand. But it's a reference manual. It should be available for everyone at every library. Everybody should have access to this text. It's going to be available in ebook versions individually and as a set. It will also be as an audiobook, and it will be abridged. There'll be study manuals and all that. That is coming. But for now, I hope to have a discount code for you who are here on these lessons. And I wanted to remind you what you're getting with this 4-book set. And you don't have to buy it, okay? You don't have to buy it. But if you want to, you can. And I want to explain to you that you have numerous tables, diagrams, and images, many of them in color. You have side notes on each page to help you study through. So there's side notes on each page. You have references at the end of each chapter, explanatory footnotes on the relevant page. You have a ribbon marker. So it's a book that you can return to over and over again. It's high quality hardback. You have a detailed list of contents, tables, and figures taking you back to what he's talking about so you can have further study of the original sources of these teachings. It's all compiled here. That's why. You also have abstracts of all chapters in an introductory. You have a fuller synopsis at the beginning of each chapter to help you go through them. Each chapter closes with a summary and a lead onto the following chapter, so it stitches them together as you go through. You have appendices and endnotes amplifying specific details. You have archaic references. Listen to this. Archaic references provided in different forms to a book or an article, and when possible, a direct link on the web. Okay, so all of this stuff, people go, oh, so-and-so said this, so-and-so said that. Eddie has put it all together and told you where you can find it too. So you can start your studies here and move forward with whatever it is, Zoroastrianism, Theosophy, science. You can just start here if you want to and then go further, because it doesn't end and begin just with this book. But this is a fantastic collection of these teachings, and I believe should be available for all. You also have a glossary of all the foreign terms. You have a definition of the terms in these ancient teachings. He's explained them for you there. And you have historical and cultural provenance of sources. And the index alone, book 4, is like 104 pages. So anyway, that's why it's costly. The publisher has done their very best, which is Shepherd Walwyn, to make these available. This 4-volume set is the one that's available now, and the link down below. I look forward to having you again on another study session. These, though, with me, are absolutely free. We can study here for free. I want everyone to have access to this text. Why do I want that? I want that because I believe that if you find that these resonate with you the way I feel their importance is for me, you then apply them. You become them, and you become living Theosophy wherever you are. You become this, you're like a way shower. You're the one not to teach anybody to be a guru, but by being kindness and compassion and empathy with understanding about the much bigger picture. You are what helps this world stop the suffering by you becoming these ancient teachings. There's nothing more important for us to do. There just isn't. So I love you, and thank you for being with me tonight. I love you, and I'll see you next week.